Page 44. Chapter 2. The Midnight Drama. Declaration of the Emergency. A few minutes before midnight on 25 June 1975, the President of India, Fakhruddin Ali Ahmed, proclaimed open inverted commas, state of emergency, close inverted commas, under Article 352 of the Constitution. I was in Calcutta for my Rajya Sabha election scheduled for 26 June and got to know of this development on the morning of the 26th. Indira Gandhi asked me to return to Delhi as soon as the election was over and meet her at the earliest. D.P. Chattopadhyay, who was then the Minister of State for Commerce and also in Calcutta for the Rajya Sabha election, told me he had received similar summons from Delhi. Para. I got to the Assembly building at about 9:30 a.m. It was teeming with state legislators, ministers, and political leaders, some with questions and others with conspiracy theories. Some went to the extent of suggesting that La Mujibur Rahman of Bangladesh, Indira Gandhi had abrogated the constitution and usurped her power for herself, with the army in tow. I corrected these prophets of doom, saying that the emergency had been declared according to the provisions of the Constitution rather than in spite of it. I argued that if the Constitution had indeed been abrogated, why would the Rajya Sabha election take place at all? Page 45. The logic worked and people started to see reason. Around 11 a.m., Siddhartha Shankar Rai, the then Chief Minister of West Bengal, returned to Calcutta from Delhi and called me to his chamber. I met him there along with D.P. Chattopadhyay and a couple of state ministers, one being Abdus Sattar, and discussed the developing scenario. Siddhartha Babu briefed us about the happenings in Delhi the night before. Para. It is believed that Siddhartha Shankar Rai played an important role in the decision to declare the emergency. It was his suggestion, and Indira Gandhi acted on it. In fact, Indira Gandhi told me subsequently that she was not even aware of the constitutional provisions allowing for the declaration of a state of emergency on grounds of internal disturbance, particularly since a state of emergency had already been proclaimed as a consequence of the Indo-Pak conflict in 1971. Para. According to Siddhartha Shankar Rai, I repeat, according to Siddhartha Shankar Rai's deposition before the Shah Commission, open brackets, set up by the Janata government to investigate the, open inverted commas, excesses, close inverted comma, of the emergency, close bracket, he was summoned to Indira Gandhi's residence on the morning of 25th June 1975. He reached number 1 Safdarjung Road and met Indira Gandhi, who said that she had received a few, I repeat, that she had received a slew of reports indicating that the country was heading into a crisis. She told him that in view of the all-round indiscipline and lawlessness, some strong corrective measures needed to be taken. Siddhartha Babu told the Shah Commission that Indira Gandhi had, in 2 or 3 previous occasions, told him that India needed some, open inverted commas, shock treatment, close inverted comma, and that some, open inverted comma, emergent power or drastic power, close inverted comma, was necessary. He recalled to the Shah Commission that on one such occasion, open bracket, before the announcement of the Allahabad High Court judgment on 12 June 1975, close bracket, he had told her that they could take recourse to the laws already on the statute books, and cited to her the success with which he had tackled the law and order problems of West Bengal within the framework of the law. Page 46. According to Siddhartha Babu, Indira Gandhi then read out intelligence reports of Jayaprakash Narayan's public meeting scheduled for that evening. The reports indicated that he would call for an all-India agitation to set up a parallel administration network as well as courts, an appeal to policemen and those in the armed forces to disobey what were supposed to be illegal orders. Indira Gandhi, he maintained, was firm in the understanding that India was drifting towards chaos and anarchy. Siddhartha Babu then asked Indira Gandhi for some time to consider the possible courses of action and returned later that evening at about 5 p.m. to tell her that she could consider. Para, if she so desired, Article 352 of the Constitution for the purpose of imposing internal emergency, open bracket, whereupon, close bracket, she asked Sri Ray to go along with her to the President immediately. She gave to the President a summary of what she had told Sri Ray with regard to the facts that the President heard her for about 20 minutes to half an hour, and then asked Sri Ray as to what were the exact words in the Constitution that the President then told the Prime Minister to make her recommendation. Footnote 25. I repeat, as to what the exact words in the Constitution that the President then told the Prime Minister to make her recommendation. Footnote 25. Para. Siddhartha Babu had been very close to Indira Gandhi ever since the days of the Congress split in 1969 and was at one point regarded as one of her most influential advisors. Indira Gandhi would seek his advice on diverse matters. As a member of the CWC and the Central Parliamentary Board, Siddhartha Babu had considerable influence over the decision-making process of the organization and the administration. Footnote 25, Shah Commission Interim Report. Page 47. His voice was prominent at the meetings of the National Development Council and at that conferences of chief ministers and at the conferences of chief ministers. He had a say in Congress policies at the national level from the early 1970s till the end of 1975. In matters related to West Bengal, his was the decisive voice. So it is not surprising that he was privy to considerable information, as the following incident indicates. Para. At the AICC session at Delhi in August 1974, Siddhartha Babu told me of an imminent cabinet reshuffle, indicating some of the potential changes. As my diary entry for the day reminds me, he revealed to me that I would get a better portfolio/assignment. His information proved to be correct, as was evident in the reshuffle of October 1974, open bracket, when I was made Minister of State for Finance, close bracket. Para. Increasingly, though not surprisingly, once it was declared, there were a whole host of people claiming authorship of the idea of declaring the emergency. And again, not surprisingly, these very people took a sharp about turn when the Shah Commission was set up to look into the emergency, open inverted comma, excesses, close inverted comma. Not only did they disown their involvement, they pinned all the blame on Indira Gandhi, pleading their own innocence. Siddhartha Babu was no exception. Deposing before the Shah Commission, he ran into Indira Gandhi, draped in a crimson sari that day, in the Commission Hall, and tossed a sprightly remark, open inverted comma, "You look pretty today," close inverted comma. Para, open inverted comma, "Despite your efforts," close inverted comma, retorted a curt Indira Gandhi. Para. Kasu Brahmananda Reddy, the then Home Minister, told the Shah Commission that he was summoned to the Prime Minister's residence at about 10:30 p.m. and was told that on account of the deteriorating law and order situation, it was necessary to impose an internal emergency. He informed Indira Gandhi that the powers already available under the existing emergency could be availed of to deal with the situation, but was told that while this possibility had been examined, the declaration of an internal emergency was considered necessary. Brahmananda Reddy told the Commission that he then signed a letter to the President of the Republic and appended the draft proclamation of emergency for the President's assent with this letter. Page 48. The letter signed by Brahmananda Reddy was on a plain sheet of paper and not on the letterhead of the Home Minister of India. Para. The letter sent to the President recommending the proclamation of emergency by Prime Minister Indira Gandhi is produced on the following page. According to the Commission's report, a copy of the letter was made available to them from the file in the President's office. Open bracket, for further information on Indira Gandhi's rationale for declaring the emergency, see her letters to the Shah Commission, some of which are reproduced in Appendix 3. Close bracket. Para. A large number of ministers and bureaucrats appeared before the Shah Commission. Evidence recorded by the Commission indicated that the decision of declaring an internal emergency was taken by Prime Minister Indira Gandhi alone, and that the Cabinet was not taken into confidence. The proceedings of the Shah Commission were peculiar. Suffice it to say that it seemed that the Commission was collecting materials and information only to substantiate a preconceived conclusion. Para. Before the midnight drama of 26th June 1975, the country had been passing through a difficult phase. The Bangladesh War of 1971 had had a serious impact on the Indian economy, and the oil crisis of 1973 added to its troubles. India's foreign aid climate deteriorated significantly as some member countries of the Aid India Consortium adopted an indifferent attitude towards India's balance of payments problem. Prices soared. September 1974 witnessed a steep rise in the wholesale price index, touching 33.33%. Smuggling and profiteering created an environment of frustration and restlessness. Industrial unrest increased, culminating in the rail strike in 1974, dealing yet another severe blow to the economy. Page 49. The letter sent to the President recommending the proclamation of emergency by Prime Minister Indira Gandhi was as follows. Top secret. To the Prime Minister of India, New Delhi, June 25, 1975. Dear Rashtrapati Ji, as already explained to you a little while ago, information has reached us which indicates that there is an imminent danger to the security of India being threatened by internal disturbance. The matter is extremely urgent. I would have liked to have taken this to Cabinet, but unfortunately, this is not possible tonight. I am therefore condoning or permitting a departure from the Government of India, open bracket, transaction of business, close bracket, Rule 1961, as amended up to date by virtue of my powers under Rule 12 thereof. I shall mention the matter to the Cabinet first thing tomorrow morning. In the circumstances, I repeat, in the circumstances and in case you are so satisfied, a requisite proclamation under Article 352, open bracket 1, close bracket, has become necessary. I am enclosing a copy of the draft proclamation for your consideration. As you are aware, under Article 352, open bracket 3, close bracket, even when there is an imminent danger of such a threat as mentioned by me, the necessary proclamation under Article 352, open bracket 1, close bracket, can be issued. I recommend that such a proclamation should be issued tonight, however late it may be, and all arrangements will be made to make it public as early as possible thereafter. With kind regards, yours sincerely, signed Indira Gandhi. Source: Shah Commission Interim Report. Page 50. The government's attempt to rationalize the wholesale trade in food grains failed and added to the confusion. While nationalization in sectors such as coal mining created confidence in the minds of the working class, these measures extracted their own pound of flesh in the Indian economy. It was against this backdrop that Jayaprakash Narayan, open bracket JP, close bracket, started his movement against corruption. People supported his call because the skyrocketing inflation and the lack of goods and services had already affected them adversely. This picture is well highlighted by Y.B. Chavan's budget statement on 28 February 1974. During the last 3 years, conditions have not been favorable. In fact, they have been far from normal in many ways. In each of these years, we had to face new challenges of extraordinary dimensions. We have tried to meet these challenges to the best of our ability. I shall, however, readily admit that because of the unusually severe strains caused by a combination of certain national and international factors beyond our control, progress in achieving our objectives has fallen short of expectations. Footnote 26. Para. I would like to state frankly that in the coming financial year, the economy will be faced with even more challenges. Its strength and adaptability will be severely tested. The steep rise in the prices of crude oil and also some other commodities has turned the terms of trade sharply against us and has rendered our tasks exceptionally difficult. Recent developments must, however, be viewed in a wider historical perspective. Nowhere in the world has the process of social and economic change been smooth or free from ups and downs. Footnote 27. Footnotes. Footnote 26, Para 2, Part 1 of the Budget Speech, 1974. Footnote 27, Para 3, Part A of the Budget Speech, 1974. Page 51. Para. As the House is aware, the government has been deeply concerned about the acute inflationary pressures that have prevailed in the economy during the last 2 years. The measures that have been adopted to deal with these inflationary pressures are well known to the honorary members. I repeat, honorable members. It is a matter of deep regret to me that, despite these measures, prices have continued to rise. The House will appreciate, I repeat, the House will appreciate that pressure on prices was inevitable as a result of the unsatisfactory performance in the field of agricultural production in the 2 successive years, 1971 to 72 and 72 to 73. The steep fall of 9.5% in agricultural output in 1972 to 73 was bound to upset the delicate balance between demand and supply. Because of a much sharper increase in international prices, the substantial imports of food grains we arranged were also unable to exercise a stabilizing influence on domestic prices. Even with a more normal Kharif crop in 1973, the pressure on prices has not abated in view of the other inflationary forces at work in the economy. It appears certain that the national income in 1973 to 74 will record a significant growth. This will help to, this will help to neutralize the unsatisfactory behavior of national income in 2 previous years. It is, however, a matter of deep concern to us that in the fourth plan, our overall rate of growth has been much lower than the planned target. It is a matter of deep regret that the upsurge in industrial production that was evident in 1972 was not sustained in 1973. The available indications suggest that there was hardly any increase in the rate of growth of industrial production in 1973. It will be a major objective of our economic policy to revive the tempo of industrial activity in 1974. To secure an adequate rate of growth is the challenge that we face in the fifth five-year plan. Footnote 28. Page 52. The fact that Y.B. Chavan had to present new taxation proposals before the Lok Sabha on 31 July, just 5 months after the presentation of the regular budget for 1974 to 75, is indicative of the depth of the crisis. If this was not extraordinary, what else was? Apart from the new taxation proposals, the government also introduced certain austerity measures, such as impounding a part of the dearness allowance and dividend in an effort to contain money's supply. This mid-year proposal, I repeat, these mid-year proposals were to yield approximately rupees 210 crore for the whole year, Chavan observed. I repeat, Chavan observed, the basic objective of the three recent ordinances involving temporary restrictions on declaration of dividends, immobilization of 50% of additional dearness allowance, and the increase in wages and salaries, and compulsory deposit by income tax payers in the higher income group is to reduce the pressure on demand and decelerate the rate of growth of money supply. In any appraisal of these measures, we must not lose sight of the narrow options open to the government. In the present situation, the only other feasible course of action could be a drastic cut in all developmental expenditure. This would entail severe adverse effects on the future growth of the economy. Footnote 29. Para. In October 1974, there was a change in the Ministry of Finance. Chavan was moved to External Affairs, and his deputy, K.R. Ganesh, was moved to the Petroleum Ministry. C. Subramaniam and I were brought into the Ministry of Finance, and I was charged with the Department of Revenue and Expenditure. Footnotes. Footnote 28. Paras 4 and 5, Part A of the Budget Speech, 1974. Footnote 29. See indiabudget.nic.in/bspeech/BS 1974-75 open bracket, July, close bracket, .pdf, accessed on 1st November 2014. Page 53. From 10th October 1974 till the time the Janata Party came to power, open bracket, 24th March 1977, close bracket, this team was responsible for managing the country's finances. In his budget speech of 1975 to 76, C. Subramanian echoed Chavan's sentiments. Para. It is unnecessary for me on this occasion to recount in detail the variety of factors, both external and internal, which have interfered with the orderly implementation of our development plans and strategies in recent times. The virulence with which inflation has been spreading and its devastating impact across national boundaries continues to impose on developing countries such as India burdens and hardships which we have been ill-equipped to withstand. The impact on the living standards of our people and on the pattern of real income within the country has been serious enough. What is even worse is the persistent rise of prices, which has eroded the capacity to save and thus imposed a painful constraint on the flow of investable resources so urgently needed to sustain our plans for a better future. Footnote 30. Para. One can reasonably argue, therefore, that the Indian economy was in a bad shape in the 3 to 4 years prior to the imposition of emergency. And even if the political unrest which led to the declaration of emergency overshadowed the economic aspects, there is no denying the fact that economic hardships, high prices, non-availability of goods, and lack of services had prepared the ground for political unrest. Footnote 30, para 1-3, Part A of the Budget Speech, 1975. Page 54. A political realignment in the country and within the Congress party began unfolding in the late 1960s. Indira Gandhi's left-of-center economic stance was disliked by the conservatives in the Congress leadership, popularly known as the Syndicate. This group had started asserting itself after the death of Jawaharlal Nehru. Their claim was that their seniority and experience counted for more than that of the political, open inverted comma, novice, close inverted comma, Indira Gandhi. These prominent Congress leaders, K. Kamraj, S. Nijalingappa, Otullo Ghosh, S.K. Patil, Biju Patnaik, C. Subramaniam, and Neelam Sanjeeva Reddy formed an informal group with the idea of pressuring Indira Gandhi to act on their advice. Their plan, however, did not succeed. Most of these leaders were defeated in the general elections in 1967, and the Congress failed to form governments in West Bengal, Bihar, Orissa, Tamil Nadu, and Kerala. Before the elections, a number of prominent Congress leaders from these states had been expelled from the party, and some of them, open bracket, Ajoy Mukherjee and Professor Humayun Kabir in West Bengal, Mahamaya Prasad Sinha in Bihar, and Pabitra Mohan Pradhan in Orissa, close bracket, formed regional outfits which fought the general elections in 1967, thus playing a crucial role in defeating the Congress in these states. As we know later, Chaudhry Charan Singh in Uttar Pradesh and Govind Narayan Singh in Madhya Pradesh defected from the Congress, causing the fall of the Congress governments in these two states too. Para. Going into the 1967 elections, the Congress was hampered by a number of factors. Foremost was the fact that they were now facing an election without the leadership of Nehru, who had ably led the party in previous general elections. In addition, these elections were being held in the immediate aftermath of the devaluation of the Indian rupee in 1966, and at a time when the food crisis was at its worst. Open bracket, the fruits of the Green Revolution would start accruing only after 1969. Page 55. The level of general dissatisfaction manifested itself when the ruling Congress lost 78 seats in the Lok Sabha and at 283 came perilously close to the halfway mark. The gainer was the Swatantra Party, an extreme right-wing party which got 44 seats and ended up as the second largest party in the Lok Sabha. Para. Indira Gandhi's election as the leader of the Congress Parliamentary Party was also not a smooth affair. In the election held after the death of Lal Bahadur Shastri, she had a strong opponent in Morarji Desai. While she won comfortably, Morarji Desai got 169 votes, not a small number by any account, as a result of which he had to be accommodated as the Deputy Prime Minister, open bracket, with charge of the Ministry of Finance, close bracket, after the 1967 general elections. Para. As in the government, I repeat, even as the government was settling down to the newly formed equations in Parliament, the states it had lost it was faced with a crisis when the judiciary took on the Parliament. Para. Most unexpectedly, nearing the end of his tenure as Chief Justice of India, Kokra Suha Rao delivered a bombshell of a judgment, open bracket, by a 6-5 majority, close bracket, in the Golaknath case. While the central government was still trying to understand the nuances of this historic judgment, which pronounced that the Parliament was not competent to amend the fundamental rights enshrined in the Constitution, there was an even more surprising development. On 12 April 1967, the day after he retired, Subbarao, supported by opposition parties, announced his candidature for the post of the President of India to contest against Congress nominee Dr. Zakir Hussain. Many eyebrows were raised. Para. The central government suddenly found itself hamstrung and unable to carry forward its left-of-center development agenda. Which required constitutional amendments. Page 56. With many states now ruled by opposition parties and a divided Congress party to contend with, it became almost impossible to pass amendments and carry forward the agenda for reforms. Para. After Indira Gandhi's solid victory in the subsequent general elections in 1971, she was able to action the 24th Amendment to the Constitution, thus wiping out the effect of the Golaknath judgment. But the fact is that with the Golaknath case, the seeds of the confrontation between the government and the judiciary were sown, and later pronouncements only went on to harden the attitudes of the judiciary. Para. The politics of the 4th Lok Sabha was fraught with pressures from outside the party as also from within. Indira Gandhi knew that in order to consolidate the party position, it was essential to have left-of-center and pro-people policies. Para. And in this scenario, Indira Gandhi started asserting herself. She set about mobilizing the rank and file of the Congress around her and, being the only leader with mass appeal, struck a chord with a large number of Congress workers. She criticized the conservative opposition within the party and emphasized that unless pro-people programs were undertaken and implemented vigorously, the gulf between the Congress government and the common masses would not be bridged. Indira Gandhi's differences with the old guard of the Congress were mainly on economic policy. Most of these leaders, who had spent long years in administration, either at the state level or at the center, had become used to the status quo and were reluctant to adopt any radical changes. Indira Gandhi, on the other hand, was convinced of the need for radical changes in Congress's economic policies, bank nationalization, abolition of privy purses, land reforms, and legal and other administrative measures to prevent the concentration of economic power in the hands of a few. The 10-point program articulated by her reflected her radical and pro-poor stance. Page 57. Overriding Morarji Desai, the then Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, she personally took charge of the Finance Ministry and vigorously set forth on her pro-left socio-economic agenda. 14 scheduled commercial banks were nationalized to prevent the monopoly of economic power in the hands of a few. The Monopoly and Restrictive Trade Practices open bracket, MRTP, close bracket, Act was passed and privy purses were abolished, among other reforms. Para. Bank nationalization was auctioned in 1969, though in the face of stiff opposition. The Ordinance on Bank Nationalization was promulgated on 19 July 1969 with the nationalization of 14 commercial banks with a deposit of over 50 crore rupees. Within this bold and decisive action, Indira Gandhi once again assumed the initiative and occupied center stage. Para. Immediately after this ordinance was promulgated, a writ was filed in the Supreme Court. This was a test for the government before the Supreme Court. The entire nation watched as the Supreme Court on 10 February 1970 threw out the ordinance as invalid. Indira Gandhi took it as an affront and gave it a political twist to show that big businesses were crushing the common man's interest, which she was aiming to champion by her pro-poor and Garibi Hatao policies. Para. July 1969 was a turning point for the Congress. Zakir Hussain passed away in May 1969 and the president's post fell vacant. The Congress Parliamentary Board, dominated by the open inverted commas syndicate, close inverted commas, proposed the name of Neelam Sanjeeva Reddy, open bracket, 6 in favor with 4 in favor of Indira Gandhi's candidate, V.V. Giri, close bracket. Indira Gandhi fought this tooth and nail, fearing that the syndicate's choice might hamper her functioning as Prime Minister. She demanded rightly that, as the Prime Minister, her vote should count for more, as the Prime Minister commanded the majority support of members of Parliament, which comprised half of the total votes in the collegium for presidential elections. Page 58. She exhorted a conscious vote. I repeat, she exhorted a conscience vote. The result, the official candidate of the Congress, Sanjeeva Reddy, was defeated by her nominee, V.V. Giri. The consequent face-off resulted in the then Congress President S. Nijalingappa, on behalf of the syndicate, expelling Indira Gandhi from the party. Indira Gandhi stood her ground. Open inverted commas. It is presumptuous on the part of this handful of men to take disciplinary action against the democratically elected leader of the people, close inverted commas. And thus came the formal split in the Indian National Congress in November 1969. Indira Gandhi's Congress came to be known as the Congress, open bracket, R, close bracket, while the, open inverted comma, syndicate, close inverted comma, Congress was known as Congress, open bracket, O, close bracket. Para. After the split, the Congress party lost its majority in both the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. The official Congress party, Congress O, asked the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha to elect a new leader of the Lok Sabha, replacing Indira Gandhi. But a majority of Congress MPs chose her as their leader, and so she remained in power. Deputy Prime Minister Morarji Desai was elected leader of Congress O. Indira Gandhi managed to continue in power for almost a year with the support of the left parties as well as the DMK of Tamil Nadu, led by M. Karunanidhi. While her radical programs made her popular among the masses, she earned the ire of veteran Congress leaders who described her as a, open inverted comma, fellow traveler of the communists, close inverted comma. Para. This was the scenario when Indira Gandhi called for mid-term elections in December 1970. The Congress O, along with the Jan Sangh, the Swatantra Party, and the Bharatiya Kranti Dal, BKD, led by Charan Singh, formed a coalition to contest the elections. This combination was known as the, open inverted comma, Grand Alliance, close inverted comma, and their slogan was, open inverted comma, Indira Hatao, close inverted comma, open bracket, remove Indira, close bracket. Indira Gandhi met the challenge by reaching an understanding with parties like the CPI and the DMK. Page 59. Para. Indira Gandhi won by a landslide, getting more than a 2/3 majority in the Lok Sabha. Her party swept the Hindi belt. I repeat, her party swept the, open inverted comma, Hindi belt, close inverted comma, in northern India, and won spectacularly even in those states where Congress O stalwarts were personally leading the electoral battle. Karnataka, open bracket, S. Nijalingappa, close bracket, Gujarat, open bracket, Morarji Desai, close bracket, and Andhra Pradesh, open bracket, Neelam Sanjeeva Reddy, close bracket. Faring well even in the states of West Bengal and Tamil Nadu, Indira Gandhi emerged as the most powerful victor in the electoral battle of 1971. Para. After the thumping majority she got in March 1971, Indira Gandhi was able to introduce the 25th Amendment, open bracket, passed on 20th April 1972, close bracket. According to this, the jurisdiction of courts to determine the adequacy of compensation on the acquisition of property was taken away. A new clause was added that no law which declared that it was giving effect to the principles in clauses open bracket B, close bracket, and open bracket C, close bracket, of Article 39, which would be called into question on the ground of inconsistency with fundamental rights. In addition, the Golaknath as well as the bank nationalization judgments, were, open inverted comma, corrected, close inverted comma, through the constitutional amendments. Para. The logical next step in the pro-people and left-of-center agenda was to do away with the privileges of rulers and ICS officers. Para. Prior to 15 August 1947, princely rulers were sovereign, though their sovereignty was subject to the paramountcy of the British Crown. This paramountcy lapsed on the 15th August 1947 because of the Indian Independence Act 1947, as a result of which these rulers became absolute sovereigns. Under the law, they were free to accede to either of the two dominions. India or Pakistan, or remain independent. Page 60. As it happened, the princely states adjoining India merged with India. After their merger, these princely rulers had no sovereign powers. They had only such rights and privileges as were recognized or created under the covenants entered by them, I repeat, entered into by them with the government of India and those embodied in the nation's constitution. With the constitution coming into force, all princely states which had merged with India, open bracket, as also their subjects, close bracket, became citizens of India with all the rights and duties of citizens of this country. Para. From about 1967, there was a move in the ruling party to abolish the privy purses guaranteed to the princely states under the Constitution, as well as the covenants and agreements recognized in Article 363. Consequently, the 26th Amendment Bill was moved in the Lok Sabha on 2nd September 1970 to delete certain provisions of the Constitution relating to the guarantees given to the princely rulers. This bill was passed in the Lok Sabha but failed to get the requisite majority in the Rajya Sabha. The motion for consideration of the bill was rejected on 5th September 1970. The same evening, the Union Cabinet met and decided to advise the President to withdraw the recognition and the purses and privileges guaranteed to the rulers of the princely states. On the same night, the President, who was in Hyderabad, purporting to act under Clause 22 of Article 600, I repeat, Article 363 of the Constitution, signed an instrument withdrawing the recognition till now guaranteed, I repeat, till now granted to princely states. After obtaining his signature, the documents were flown to Delhi the same night, and the impugned orders issued on 6 September 1970. On the strength of these orders, the Government of India asserted that all princely rulers had been de-recognized and consequently, none of them were now entitled to the rights and privileges till now available to them. Page 61. Expectedly, this matter was taken to the Supreme Court, where a special bench of 11 judges, headed by Justice G.C. Shah, was constituted for its hearing. Madhav Rao Scindia of Gwalior was the principal mover of the writ, open bracket, 15 December 1970, close bracket, to challenge the vias of the ordinance. The judgment pronounced on 15 December 1970 went in favor of the petitioner and read as follows. Order. In accordance with the opinion of the majority of the petitions are allowed, I repeat, in accordance with the opinion of the majority, the petitions are allowed and writs will issue declaration that the orders made by the President on September 6, 1970, challenged here were illegal and on that account inoperative, and the petitioners will be entitled to all their pre-existing rights and privileges, including the right to privy purses, as if the orders have not been made. The petitioners will get their costs of the petitions. One hearing fee in those petitions in which the petitioners have appeared through the same counsel. Petitions allowed. Para. The only dissenting judge was A.N. Ray, whose order was in favor of abolition of privy purses, and according to him, recognition of rulership is not a legal right. It is not a right to property. Privy purse is not a legal right to property. There is no fundamental right to privy purse. There is no fundamental right to rulership. Para. A series of decisions in this court have held that Article 363 is a bar to rights to privy purse, personal rights and privileges, recognition of rulership from being agitated in courts. These decisions have spoken the words of the Constitution. Point 3. The petitions therefore fail and are dismissed. Each party will pay and bear its own costs. Para. In fact, the judgment in the Privy Purse's case provided the signal to Indira Gandhi to dissolve the 4th Lok Sabha and go in for a midterm poll, which she won with a large mandate. Para. Thus, it may be observed that in this confrontation, the Parliament trumped the judgment of the Supreme Court, delivered by an 11-member bench. But finally, in April 1973, in the Keshav Nanda Bharti case, the Supreme Court decided that the ruling in the Golaknath case was wrong and that the Parliament had the power of amendment, but it could not alter the basic structure of the Constitution. Para. The sum total of this face-off was that while the state always had the larger national interest in mind, the courts always chose the rights of the individual above all else. Para. While history remains confined to books, the impact of those years is still being felt. Para. The foundations of the perceived mistrust of the judiciary had been laid by the judgment in the Goloknath case in April 1967. And while Indira Gandhi wanted to go ahead with her reforms agenda, all her efforts appeared to be stymied by the judiciary. I repeat, all her efforts appeared to be stymied by the judiciary. Of course, the Goloknath judgment was well reasoned, but appeared to be too close for comfort. Para. Indira Gandhi's landslide victory in 1971 gave her a stronger mandate to deal with the issue, giving, as it did, an upper hand to the political executive. This is when the murmurs of a committed judiciary also began to be heard. In the post-1971 dispensation, most of the decisions in such matters came to be taken by the troika of H.R. Gokhale, Minister for Law, S. Mohan Kumar Mangalam, Minister for Steel, and S.S. Ray, Minister for Education, all of whom were legal luminaries. Page 63. Some of the judicial appointments made at that time definitely had their stamp. Nobody was openly critical, but there was a certain degree of uneasiness amongst the judges regarding some of these appointments. Matters also came to be discussed in Parliament, particularly during the debate on the 24th Amendment. The situation escalated to such an extent that the Chief Justice of India, S.M. Sikri, took umbrage at certain pronouncements in the debate and protested to the Prime Minister even while this crisis with the East Pakistan was at its peak. That Indira Gandhi replied without much delay, despite the war with Pakistan, only went to show the seriousness she attached to the whole affair. A copy of her reply was reproduced later in this narrative. I repeat, a copy of her reply is reproduced later in this narrative. It was not only a terse policy statement, but can also be seen as an assertion of the political executive. Para, the legacy of Indira Gandhi's first term, which was over in March 1977, continued well into her second tenure, which commenced in January 1980. P. Shiv Shankar had taken over as the law minister, and in his bid to pack the superior judiciary, a clever device was resorted to, which took the shape of the following letter. Addressed to Ministry of Law, Justice and Company Affairs, India, New Delhi, 110001. Dated March 18, 1981. Dear Sir, it has repeatedly been suggested to the government over the years by several bodies and forums, including the states Reorganization Commission, the Law Commission, and various bar associations that to further national integration and to combat narrow parochial tendencies bred by caste, kinship, and other local links and affiliations, 1/3 of the judges of a high court should, as far as possible, be from outside the state in which that High Court is situated. Somehow, no start could be made in the past in this direction. The feeling is strong, growing, and justified that some effective steps should be taken very early in this direction. 2. In this context, I would request you to A. Obtain from all the additional judges working in the High Court of your state their consent to be appointed as permanent judges in any other High Court in the country. They could, in addition, be requested to name 3 High Courts in order of preference to which they would prefer to be appointed as permanent judges. And B. Obtain from persons who have already been or may in the future be proposed by you for initial appointment their consent to be appointed to any other High Court in the country, along with a similar preference for 3 High Courts. Number 3. While obtaining the consent and the preference of the persons mentioned in paragraph 2 above, it may be made clear to them that the furnishing of the consent or the indication of a preference does not imply any commitment on the part of the government, either in regard to their appointment or in regard to accommodation in accordance with the preferences given. Number 4. I would be grateful if action is initiated very early by you and the written consent and preferences of all additional judges as well as of persons recommended by you for initial appointment are sent to me within a fortnight of the receipt of this letter. Number 5. I am also sending a copy of this letter to the Chief Justice of your High Court. With regards, yours sincerely, signed P. Shiv Shankar. The next letter, page 65. I repeat. Para, the next letter, addressed to Governor of Punjab and Chief Minister, open bracket, by name, close bracket, open bracket, except northeastern states, close bracket. I repeat, yours sincerely signed P. Shiv Shankar. Copies to 1. Governor of Punjab, 2. Chief Minister, open bracket, by name, close bracket, open bracket, except northeastern states, close bracket. Earlier, during the emergency, a large number of judges had been transferred to other high courts, so much so that in one instance, 16 judges had been transferred on a single day. I repeat, 16 judges had been transferred on a single day. These transfers had generally been seen as the executive's attempt to pressurize the judiciary to toe its line. The notorious additional district magistrate Jabalpur's case also happened during this period, where the judiciary seemed to bend to follow the emergency's provisions of detention. Para. P. Shiv Shankar's letter expectedly drew a severe reaction from senior advocates and was seen as gross interference with the independence of the judiciary, reminding people of the days of the emergency. This also sent off a chain of events which finally culminated in the 3 cases decided by the Supreme Court. Apprehensive of repeated onslaughts from the executive, the judiciary tried to insulate itself from executive interference in either transfers or appointments to the higher judiciary. How the pendulum swung from one side to the other between the first judge's case and the third is narrated in Indira Gandhi's letter to the Chief Justice of India in December 1971. Page 66. Indira Gandhi's letter to the Chief Justice. December 18, 1971. Dear Chief Justice, I have your letter of December 3rd, 1971. As you know, I was away on that date. You are also aware of the events which took place, which kept us all so fully occupied. I am, therefore, taking the earliest opportunity to write to you. Para. I am glad, I repeat, I am glad that you wrote to me because it enables me to clear some of the apprehensions which you have expressed. Your brother judges and you have taken exception to some observations made by the Minister of Law and Justice in the course of the cut and thrust of a debate in Parliament. You know him well. I repeat, you know him well. You also know my other cabinet colleagues, Shri Mohan Kumaramangalam, and Sri Siddhartha Shankar Ray. They have all been brought up to respect the judiciary. You need have no doubt whatever that the government and the country as a whole will always uphold the dignity of the courts, including the highest court in our land. Para. Our country is going through profound social, political, and economic transformation. Such transformation took place in Europe and America through violence, revolutions, and upheavals. In India, we are trying to achieve the same results by arguments. Therefore, there are bound to be moments of conflict between Parliament and judiciary, or the judiciary and the executive. These are inherent in any living and evolving society. I do not have to recall the moments of such conflict in the United States and Britain. Despite these conflicts, institutions have grown and taken deep roots. We can derive some satisfaction from the fact that for nearly a quarter of a century, we have avoided excesses and have resolved differences arising out of the divergent visions of the law and the justice without undermining their dignity and prestige. Page 67. Para. I remember Bentham's wise remarks. I repeat, para. I remember Bentham's wise remarks that when the judge had made his decision, he was, open inverted comma, given over to criticism, close inverted comma. As you know, most of the constitutional amendments putting a particular interpretation on certain articles of the Constitution. Inevitably, the merits or otherwise of such judgments have been debated at length during the passage of successive Constitution amendment bills. This in itself is a measure of the high regard of Parliament and the government for the judiciary. Para. I hope that you and your brother judges will see the conflict of arguments, debates, discussions in Parliament in a wider context and not as, open bracket, in, close bracket, any adverse conclusions. Para. So far as I can make out, ministers participating in the debate did not say anything which had not already been said on many earlier occasions in Parliament. In the course of the debate on the Fourth Constitution Amendment, one of your own distinguished colleagues, Sri Justice Hegde, when he was a member of the Parliament, made certain observations without, I am sure, intending to affect the prestige and authority of the Supreme Court. The portion referred to by you was, in fact, a quotation from this speech. Para. I personally have no doubt whatsoever that as our nation moves forward and our society gains inner cohesion and sense of direction, all our great institutions, parliament, judiciary, and executive, will reflect the organic unity of our society. Legal stability depends on, I repeat, legal stability depends as much upon the power to look forward for necessary adjustment and adaptation as to look backward for certainty. We have all to guard against the danger of substituting those inarticulate major premises of social and economic thinking, of which as individuals might happen to approve at a given time for the will of the people as reflected in Parliament. Page 68. The needs and grievances of the people in a democracy cannot be met by repression of their manifestations, but by remedying the causes which underlie them. I repeat, the causes which underlie them. Para. I should like to reassure you and your brother judges of our abiding respect for the courts and their pivotal role. The nation expects them to maintain their high tradition and impartiality and to act according to their rights without fear or favor. If there are ever any moments when you feel like writing to me, please do not hesitate to do so. Warm regards, yours sincerely, signed Indira Gandhi. Honorable Sri S.M. Sikri, Chief Justice of India, 5 Hastings Road, New Delhi. This letter shows the strained relationship that existed between the judiciary and the executive. Even the Chief Justice of India had to complain to the Prime Minister in writing. Para. As we have seen, in December 1971, India was forced to contend against Pakistan in the wake of the genocide in the then East Pakistan and the consequent migration of 10 million refugees into India. Page 69. Pakistan's subsequent surrender to the joint forces of Bangladesh's Mukti Bahini and the Indian Army further enhanced Indira Gandhi's prestige within the country and outside. Possibly as a result, her party continued its successful run into the State Assembly elections of 1972, with the most spectacular victory being the return of the Congress to power in West Bengal by routing the left. However invincible she may have appeared to be in these electoral battles, the performance of her party in the state assembly elections in Uttar Pradesh and Orissa in 1974 was not at all that impressive. In 1973, the party lost a couple of by-elections too. Para. Allegations of corruption were brought against some government personnel, as well as some members of parliament and state assemblies. It was made to appear that persons holding high offices were either corrupt or shielding those who were corrupt. It is then, as I have mentioned, I repeat, it is then, as I have mentioned in passing, that Jayaprakash Narayan launched the, open inverted comma, Bhrashtachar Hatao, close inverted comma, open bracket, remove corruption, close bracket, movement. Many political parties, open bracket, mainly those of the right, close bracket, grabbed this opportunity and jumped on to the, open inverted comma, anti-corruption, close inverted comma, bandwagon. They realized that left to themselves, they would run out of steam in any electoral battle against Indira Gandhi. Their only hope was JP. Their Charter of Demands, open inverted comma, called for elections to be held in Gujarat and Bihar and formalized the spirit of, open inverted commas, total revolution, close inverted commas, with the list of demands, open bracket, for reforms leading to greater social justice, respect for civil liberties, electoral reform, anti-corruption measures, etc., close bracket, close inverted comma, footnote 31. Intimidation, coercion, strikes, bands, and gheraos became rampant. People already frustrated with the depressing economic situation and reeling under escalating market prices did not resist this movement. Footnotes. Footnote 31. Christophe Jaffrelot, The Hindu Nationalist Movement and Indian Politics. Politics, 1925 to 1990s, open bracket, New Delhi, 1996, close bracket. Page 70, para. And this is when the Allahabad High Court, I repeat, and this is when the Allahabad High Court delivered its judgment, open bracket, 12 June 1975, close bracket, on the petition filed by Raj Narayan, open bracket, a socialist leader, close bracket, challenging the validity of Indira Gandhi's election in 1971 from the Raebareli constituency, where Indira Gandhi had defeated him and others by a huge margin. Raj Narayan's petition alleged electoral misconduct. Justice Jagmohan Lal Sinha in his judgment, ordered, "In view of my findings, this petition is allowed and the election of Indira Gandhi respondent number 1 to the Lok Sabha is declared void." The respondent number 1 accordingly stands disqualified for a period of 6 years from the date of this order as provided in Section 8A of the Representation of People Act. The operation of the said order is accordingly stayed for a period of 20 days. On the expiry of the said period of 20 days, or as soon as an appeal is filed in the Supreme Court, whichever takes place earlier, this order shall cease to carry effect. Para. The Allahabad High Court judgment intensified political activity across the country, and the subsequent period became politically turbulent, leading ultimately to the emergency being declared on 25 June 1975.